I would do anything for you. If they want me to turn against you, if they think or whatever they believe, and if they want to blame me for that, that's okay. I can take the blame. I'll never do anything to hurt you or against you.
The au pair's story and her letters front and center in the case against her former lover. So just how credible is she? We'll talk about it. And we're dissecting the discomfort. We've got a body language expert here to weigh in on what was going on in the courtroom with the au pair and with the defendant. Plus, it's all hugs and kisses in a courtroom on the West Coast for defendant Kevin West. We're taking a closer look at the cheating fire chief trial and sharing some illuminating text messages from him to his lover. Plus, a malpractice lawsuit revealed against the man who allegedly killed an Ohio dentist and his wife. We'll talk about whether this could lead investigators to identifying a possible motive. It's all coming up next for you right here on Opening Statements. Good Thursday morning to you and welcome to Opening Statements. I'm Julie Grant. Are you ready for some coffee and some court? It's that time where we get you all warmed up and ready to go for the big day ahead on Court TV Live. We've got an outstanding show planned, so let's get to it. Grab that cup of coffee right now. It's time for my opening statement. The messy au pair missed out on a misdemeanor, all because she was standing by her man. She managed to plead to a felony, which is worse than which she was offered. And that is quite a feat. What did I tell you on Wednesday morning, my friends, when we kicked off the show? I said, you don't find a lamb in a pig pen. You might find some messy freaks in there, but no lambs. Juliana, the au pair, was so savage and so heartless, she moved into Christine Banfield's bedroom after she was killed. That's right. She put a picture of herself with Mr. Taxman up on the nightstand and hung the Brazilian flag in there. What's most sick and disturbing, though, is that those two savages slept together in the same bedroom where the homicides happened. That is next level depravity, if you ask me. And people say Diddy was a freak. Those two messy freaks make Diddy look like a choir boy. The crimes in question involve dastardly deeds. Two innocent people were murdered, and an innocent little girl lost her mother. And how those two could even sleep a wink in that bedroom after the homicides happened in there is almost as incomprehensible as their alleged actions in this sinister murder plot. I sure hope the jury is as disgusted as I was when I heard all of that. That's my opening statement on this Thursday morning. Let me know if you like it. Right now, it's time for your daily docket.
Lorna messaged Kevin, hey, a big thank you for the whiskey, tequila, and lovely bottle of wine. Meant to thank you both. We really enjoyed our time together and getting to know your sweet girl. Enjoy your day. Love you. Kevin replied, Mom and Bill, thank you so much for having us this weekend. You don't know how much that meant to us. She felt so loved, welcomed, and accepted.
In Washington State, we've got the defense case continuing in the cheating fire chief murder trial for defendant Kevin West. Court gets underway at noon Eastern time. In New Jersey, we've got testimony resuming in the Mansion murders trial at 8:30 a.m. against defendant Paul Canero. And in Texas, we've got the state expected to rest its case in the Uvalde school massacre trial for defendant and former police officer Adrian Gonzalez. Court starts up in that one at 10 a.m. Right now, though, we turn to your top story in just a couple of hours. The au pair affair murder trial for defendant Brendon Banfield resumes. Does the jury think the au pair is credible? The defendant's accused of murder in the 2023 deaths of his wife, Christine, and a man that he allegedly lured to the home that he didn't know, named Joseph Ryan. At the center of this case is the au pair, former lover Juliana Magalhaes. She testified over the past 2 days. Cross was pretty brutal. She was questioned about numerous letters that she sent after she was arrested. At first, she seemed to be standing by her man.
I would give my life for his, and I would never do anything to hurt him or against him. Whatever they're saying, whatever they want to believe, I don't care. I would take the blame for both of us. I would do anything for you. If they want me to turn against you, if they think or whatever they believe, and if they want to blame me for that, that's okay. I can take the blame. I'll never do anything to hurt you or against you.
But then, months later, the tone of the letters turns. The au pair starts expressing frustration with Brendon and with the case.
Listen up, bitch. Better to think, not to think about moving again. I'm already pissed off at him because for the third time this week, he said he would come see me today and everything, but he didn't come. He had unforeseen circumstances. He says he'll come on Monday, and I already feel like we're behind again in hiring the specialists we need, etc. I don't even want to think about it. He's stressing me out.
So did the letters provide the defense team with a clear motivation that she flipped under pressure? What do you think? Do you think Brendon Banfield now has to take a stand and refute what his former lover is saying? There's lots to talk about here. I'm going to bring in my guest to help me unpack it all. With me, psychotherapist and the CEO of Life Counseling Solutions, Dr. Janie Lacey is here, and so is high-profile celebrity attorney John Phillips. Good morning to you both. John, let me start with you. The au pair, she was up there for a long time on that cross. What impressions were you left with, please, of her?
You know, it's a tough situation. Like we talked about last week, this was her only way out. You know, she's part of a murder, rape fantasy, like this whole crazy story. And she wanted to stand by her man, but those letters from jail are always going to get you. The phone calls from jail are always going to get you. The defense is going to, try to make this out to be untrue. And now they're bringing up like this Netflix deal she had, which we can get into. That's ridiculous that Netflix is approaching people before they testify. It happens all the time. But she did a good job as these things go. And I do think Brendon might have to take the stand at this point.
Ooh, interesting to hear you say that, John. Yeah. I mean, look, there's two stories. They're apparently pretty far apart here. I appreciate that. Dr. Janie, it seems that people want to know, is this woman a manipulator, or was she manipulated? Was she manipulated by Brendon or by the government to give testimony? What do you say?
You know what I would say, Julie? Well, I could say a lot, but what I would say in short is that I think her testimony to me revealed someone that was caught between trauma bond and survival instincts, right? So when we look at that over a year, she's protecting him, but that's not unusual from my perspective in enmeshed relationships, right? We're listening to these love letters from jail. She told her family she can't believe that she may spend life in prison for someone. To me, that language for someone told me that she sees herself as someone sacrificing for him, which is a hallmark of a toxic codependent relationship. But then, as you mentioned, we see this shift, and then she starts complaining about her lawyer, and she feels abandoned, and then she suddenly flips. So I would think that the defense wants the jury to see this as her taking an opportunity, being opportunistic. But, from a psychological standpoint, that's how we see also victims finally break free, when the fantasy collapses and their self-preservation kicks in. So to me now, the question is whether the jury is going to see her as a manipulated young woman, or she's a calculated co-conspirator who's now playing the victim card. That's my thoughts, Julie.
Oh, I love all those insights, Dr. Janie. Thank you. Yeah, let's talk more about the au pair. And what I cannot believe this, how she gets offered a misdemeanor and manages to mess that up and winds up taking the felony. We've got a clip where she was crossed on that. Let's take a look.
This is 2 months after you were arrested, and were you given an opportunity to plead guilty and cooperate at that time?
Yes.
Okay. And what was it that they were offering you at that time?
At that point, my lawyer had said that they were offering, in exchange for my cooperation, they would offer me a misdemeanor and I would be released on time served.
And what was your decision?
That I didn't want it.
Okay. So you rejected the misdemeanor offer?
Yes.
Based on what you knew?
Yes.
Oh, my. John Phillips, ordinarily, right, you go through plea negotiations, and through the course of those negotiations, things get better. Here, she wound up with worse. Your thoughts, please, John?
Yeah, but again, and I'm not the psychologist or psychiatrist. I just play one on TV sometimes. But coercive control is real. And again, she's caught up in this situation where she's stuck, and she's concerned about being deported back to Brazil and all of this. But I really wonder how that conversation went with her and her lawyer. I assume it was a public. I know her mom was paying. I think her parents were paying for a lawyer. Like, it just seems odd. But when you're told to testify and you're going to stick to this story, you don't understand necessarily the consequence between a misdemeanor and a felony, right? And it's certainly going to attack her credibility overall. Oh, now you're doing it, But it's coercive control, the level of psychological manipulation, the age difference, the country of origin difference, like all of that works into that probably needs to be explained to the jury through an expert, frankly. But
Right, John. Yeah, I mean, if anything, it looks good for the prosecution's case. Like, look, we weren't messing around with her. Like, she rejected the offer. Too bad. It's not coming back. You get what you get. You get the felony now for playing games with us. So for them, it's good. For her, you mentioned about the payments. Yeah, this was an interesting fact. It was Brendon's mom who was paying for her lawyer. Let's take a look at a clip, please.
Do you know who paid for your attorneys?
Who, what? I'm sorry.
Who paid for your attorneys?
Brennan's mother. She put money on my account so I can tax with my mom in Brazil, my family.
And did that support ever stop?
Yes.
When did that support stop?
When I signed my plea deal.
Okay, and so when she took the plea, then the money stops. And overall, we saw a lot of people commenting that the affair kind of seemed like she didn't really care too much, didn't seem emotional, didn't seem distraught or busted up over two people are dead, and she kind of had the same flat affect the whole time she was testifying. Dr. Janie, what are your thoughts on that when you look at her as a person? Do you think she really is devoid of that emotion that most humans have when lives are taken?
Well, sometimes I look at it from the outside, Julie, and I look at this as the compartmentalization, right? So when people are in survival mode and then they find themselves in these situations on any level that they never thought they would be in, they kind of put these things in, the best way to explain it, little teeny folders. So to the outside, it may look like someone's a void of emotion. It may look like they don't care, but they're really inside in survival mode. So they shut down their emotions. They suppress their emotions in order to move forward. And, and what I would also say about that is when we look at the history, like I agree with John, when we look at coercive control, when you think about what that means to the average person is it's when the toxic relationships unfold. When you look at someone who's young, who's isolated, she's completely dependent on this family, and then Brendon had all the power. He was older, he was American, he's employed, he's an IRS officer, and the affair just didn't happen because they fell in love. It happened because he identified her as someone he probably could control, and then within weeks of sleeping with her, Julie, he floated the ideal of killing his spouse. To me, that was a test to see how she responds. Does she recoil? Does she report him? Right. So when I see these toxic dynamics, there's sometimes these tests that happen, and then she stayed in there, and he knew he had her. And then it escalated from there, from what we've seen.
Yes, really sharp analysis. Dr. Janie, thank you for that. We have to let you go. Thank you kindly for joining us. John Phillips is coming along. We want you to do the same at home. Still ahead here on Opening Statements. Oh, we're not done talking about the au pair and her body language and the defendant's body language. We got an expert joining us next. Plus,
you never make me feel like I'm attractive. You don't kiss me passionately. Kevin continues, you turn your head away. I feel like I'm fighting for affection. It's so hard on me.
Oh, get ready. Wait till you hear these text messages sent by former Battalion Chief Kevin West. We'll be right back.
Did an affair lead to double murder?
The Commonwealth's Attorney's Office has secured an indictment against Brendon Banfield for the murder of his wife, Christine, and the murder of Mr. Ryan.
Prosecutors allege the defendant planned to run away with the family's au pair.
So he killed his wife and another man.
He was saying, I'm gonna kill her, I'm gonna kill her.
It's a case of sex, lies, and deadly deception.
The Au Pair Affair murder trial. Live coverage today on Court TV.
At some point, while you were working for the Banfield family, did your relationship with the defendant change?
Yes.
How did it change?
It became sexual, physical relationship.
And do you recall when the relationship changed?
It was August 2022.
Juliana Magalhaes testifying against her former lover and boss, Brendon Banfield. This trial happening in Virginia, and it is trending in true crime big time this morning. So right now, what we want to do in this segment is focus on the optics in the courtroom. What was going on during her time on the stand? So prosecutors are saying that Brendon Banfield wanted to run off with Magalhaes, the family's au pair, and he came up with this murder plot, according to the au pair, to get rid of his wife, Christine. Now, on Wednesday, the two former lovers were back in the courtroom together. Can the jury trust the au pair's testimony? And what can we learn from her body language and his body language? We're here to help us break it all down. Jury consultant and human behavior expert Susan Constantine is here. Susan, good morning to you. All right, let's start by showing you Juliana Magalhaes talking about the financial support she received from Brendon Banfield's mom.
You were arrested in October of 2023, and you entered your guilty plea in October 2024. Why did you wait a year?
I'm sorry.
Why did you wait a year?
I had things I was concerned about, such as I was afraid of not being able to be represented if they stopped the payment. I was afraid of not having any way of communication with my family, my mom in Brazil, because I depended on Brendon's mother to do that for me.
All right, Susan, what stood out to you here, please?
Well, I found a pattern in her. First of all, there's when she's asked a tough question, she pauses. She asks or pretends like she doesn't understand the question and wants it repeated. This is kind of a stalling buying time tactic. The other thing is that there is a very conflicted relationship with her and Brendon's mom. So there's moments in these clips where she's asked about what we talked about, why, about the who paid for the attorney and why wait a year. When we're watching her body language, you could see, there was almost like a scratch and then there was a snip like this. That's aggression. That's animosity. That's anger. So there is a conflict. I noticed that right off. In fact, my husband and I were watching it right before we came. He goes, "Oh, I picked up the scratch and snip myself." And I said, "Yeah, it was very obvious, right?" So when we see this, when it's right after a question, pausing, hesitating, buying time, then the scratches or the touch and the sniffs, all of that begins to tell a story. But she repeated it, and 3 different questions, almost identically the same behavioral symptoms.
Boy, this is interesting, Susan. Okay, let's keep going. The next clip, she's explaining why she eventually took the plea deal to turn state's evidence.
What ultimately made you decide that you were going to enter this plea?
Was the thought of being the right thing to do. I guess we all deserved to know what really happened, and I just couldn't hold it. I just couldn't keep it to myself. The feeling of shame and guilt and sadness and all those feelings.
Susan, tell us what you see here.
Oh, there's a lot of things there. First of all, you see her doing the mouth shrugs. She has a lot of mouth shrugs. But tie it to the words. There's a lot of shame, right? A lot of guilt or whatever. That's consistent with what she's actually feeling. So after the fact, she is feeling like, there's shame and there's guilt in what she's doing. But it's also negating what she's saying because there's no real sense of sadness in her face. So in other words, the synchronization of her muscle movements are not congruent from top to bottom. Even though this does this in a shrug and the chin lifts up almost like in a chin boss, this is completely, utterly flat. So when we see that mismatch, that's telling me she's giving the word, word salad, right? But that's not really a truly felt one. So the shrugging, the mouth shrugs negates what she's saying. You literally have to erase it. The shoulder shrugs, hand shrugs, and mouth shrugs are deceptive indicators.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is really helpful, Susan. And as you look at him there, anything you picked up on with him during her testimony?
Well, he's cowarding, right? Yeah. Head down, he's hiding. It's like you get literally like a turtle is just kind of finding a safe place inside.
He is turtling.
Right? Yeah. A little double chin is kind of sticking out.
What's that doing? Yeah.
Yeah. So this is cowarding and avoidance, right? It's actually a form of what we call stonewalling. And a partner will do this to somebody when they don't want to give them eye contact. Johnny Depp did that with Amber Heard. These eyes are never going to meet yours. He's doing the same thing. He's stonewalling her.
Ooh, yeah, I see. Yeah, it seems that way. So you said, cowardly. It could be, could it be embarrassment?
Cowarding.
Oh, cowarding. I'm sorry, cowarding. Do you think he could be a little embarrassed hearing about, because so much of this was the focus on their affair and do you think he's at all, looking at him, ashamed of himself?
Oh, he certainly could be, and that's the reason why he's cowarding. Mm-hmm. So that's why they do that, right? So what is the reason why he's doing it? Why is he cowarding? One, he doesn't want to make eye contact. He's stonewalling her. But also, there's probably a sense of embarrassment. I don't see embarrassment written on his face, but we're only looking at positioning, head down, slumped, and collapsed. So what does that tell you? Lack of confidence. This person doesn't feel good about themselves or the situation because they're in low confidence profile. So when we see that, this guy is not having a good day. He is concerned about maybe his reputation.
Oh, yeah, as he should be. Wow, Susan, thank you for that. We want to get your take on something else, because this, of course, had everybody talking. We do this with every trial. The affair is no different. When we have somebody like a star witness or a defendant, we always talk about the optics, what they're wearing. And a lot of people were commenting on how, prior to trial, this is one of the photos that was circulating in the news clips. I mean, she's dressed kind of provocatively as she's, posing there. And then in court, we're seeing a very different look from her. Even look at outside the home and the body camera footage, it's different. So you go from this to then the body camera footage. She's got glasses on in that. In court, she looks very muted down, kind of I call it the librarian look, is what I was seeing. What do you think, Susan, side by side?
Yeah. It's too extreme. Okay, so whoever it is that did the witness preparation went too far. So to put the glasses on, dowdy, no makeup, flat, sallow looking, kind of like teacher-like, is not a good play for her. I wouldn't have done that. I would have pumped it up just a little bit, because the two don't even look like they're the same person. And they're going to be comparing that, the jury is. That's the real one. This is the fake one.
Yeah, I'm with you. A great analysis, as always. Susan Constantine, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Friends at home, don't go anywhere. Here's what's next.
Kevin, a message, October 15th, 2023 at 5:40 p.m. I'm forever grateful for you both. He messaged, great days ahead. And Lorna replied, feelings are mutual, and we loved every moment with you guys. She's an easy, sweet girl to love, an instant connection.
Oh, the text messages between the former battalion chief and his mother revealed in court. We're spotlighting lover man turned murder defendant next. Plus, could investigators get one step closer to proving the motive in the killings of an Ohio dentist and his wife? The malpractice lawsuit unveiled and the murder weapon reportedly located.
What reluctance did Kevin West convey to you about divorcing Marcy?
Financial, losing half of his stuff and half of his pension.
And what is the current, well, are you and Kevin West in a romantic relationship? Yes. And what is the current state of your relationship? We're engaged.
All the different sides of defendant Kevin West are in our spotlight this morning. He's on trial right now. He's a former fire battalion chief, and he was having an affair, and that was just his fiance you just saw there in that last clip, giving testimony. The allegation is that he murdered his wife, Marcy, by strangling her to death to avoid having to pay for a divorce. Well, look at this. It's not stopping all the support he's getting in the courtroom. We see lots of hugs, lots of support every day. Text messages, though, about his love life were the focus for the jury. The jury didn't get to see all of this. This is just our cameras that caught this. The jury got to hear about some messages, including one to his mother about his new lover, Cynthia.
October 13th, 2023 at 3:52 p.m. Kevin messaged Lorna, "I can't tell you what it means to me to have you guys support me and us." On October 15th, 2023 at 1:19 p.m. local, Lorna messaged Kevin, "Hey, a big thank you for the whiskey, tequila, and lovely bottle of wine. Meant to thank you both. We really enjoyed our time together and getting to know your sweet girl. Enjoy your day. Love you." Kevin replied, "Mom and Bill, thank you so much for having us this weekend. You don't know how much that meant to us. She felt so loved, welcomed, and accepted."
Then the state presented this text thread showing the lack of love shown by Kevin to his wife, Marcy, right before her death.
Marcy replied, "But to hear that you don't enjoy me hurts, and for so long. I've enjoyed spending time with you and the kids. I've loved the memories that we've shared. I always acknowledge your concerns. I would appreciate the same. Pain is real, but I sacrifice nonetheless. I'm a good person." Marcy messages, "I'd like to think that others feel the same." Kevin replies, "You have never made me feel desired sexually. You never tell me that I turn you on." Kevin continues, "I'm just a predator. I'm just seeking satisfaction. It's not making love." Kevin continues, "It's not mutual. You never make me feel like I'm attractive. You don't kiss me passionately." Kevin continues, "You turn your head away. I feel like I'm fighting for affection. It's so hard on me."
So what's going on with his lover turned homicide defendant, and will he need to take the stand? We know he legally doesn't have to. Lots of times we see defendants wanting to. Let's talk about this wild case. Let's bring in criminology expert, author, and professor at St. Thomas University, Dr. Debbie Goodman, and high-profile celebrity criminal defense and civil rights attorney, John Phillips. All right, so Dr. Debbie, let me start with you here. Very differing stories. Strangulation versus an intense massage caused a seizure that led to a sudden death that unfortunately coincides with the timing that he was going to leave the marriage, serve up the divorce papers to Marcy, and move on with the lover. What do you think, please, about this defendant's behavior?
Thank you, Julie. Good morning. I'm leaning toward option one. Here's why. I love the experts in our field, Julie. For me, the actual spotlight, hence the title of your segment, the spotlight of this case for me is the Emmys report, where we have the indication of the bruising, the trauma to the neck. That does not occur via a massage. And then we add into the mix the affair. And that sounds very reminiscent of other cases that have been covered on Court TV. Scott Peterson, the death of Lacey, allegedly his affair. The case of Chris Watts, and he too had an affair. So we know the category, we call it exorcide, when the husband kills the wife. And the data, Julie, on this, I checked this morning, CDC, Bureau of Justice, 2024 data indicates 1,600 cases. We don't even call it intimate partner violence. We call it intimate partner homicide. I think that is what this case is all about.
Oh, chilling, sharp analysis. Dr. Debbie, thank you for that. Yeah, dovetailing off of the point you made about how good the medical examiner's testimony was for the state of Washington. John Phillips, I have a clip I want to show you. This is where she's saying that this defense theory just doesn't match the physical science.
The location of the contusion is, part of it is over a bony prominence, which is not a focus of a tissue massage. If there is slow continual pressure of the tissue sufficient to cause bleeding in the muscles, I would expect there to be injury to the skin surface.
Makes sense. You don't get your bones massaged, you get your muscles massaged. John Phillips, do you think this is going to be enough for this jury, this ME's testimony? Because we know we got an expert coming. There's somebody on deck for the defense. We just haven't seen them yet. Is this enough, essentially, for these jurors to call upon their own common sense and assess these facts in a way that the state wants them to?
I think so. I wish I had heard some of the voir dire, because sometimes you can set some of this up in jury selection about whether somebody's had a massage. We've all had it. If you get the massage around the neck area, it's very brief. It's not really what we're focused on. And again, you're not really hitting the bony parts, because that's not what a massage does. We don't massage the bones. We're massaging the tissues to release them. And so the forensic analysis is this is more direct pressure, not to massage, not to relax, but to strangulate. And so if the jury got it, right, because sometimes experts talk it and medical examiners talk it and, medical terms, and I think they got it. There was enough there that's the key to set up how this happened, and then why this happened comes in through the affair and just the sad tale yet again of a spouse turning to somebody else when they feel abandoned or neglected. So he said in text messages, and then he has an out and he has to get rid of the commitment he made, and instead of divorce, he chose arguably murder.
Exactly. John Phillips, first of all, bravo with that prop. I know that was impromptu just now. You've had it in your office. We've seen him come on the show before. But you know what you just did is really what the state should have done. And they may have to do it on rebuttal, depending on how good the defense expert is show the bones, show the skeleton, and ask, where do you put are you touching the bones when you're massaging? No, you don't massage the front of the neck. It's the back of the neck that would get the massage. That's where you would see the impressions, and show the jury. So seeing you do that right there, I went into trial ad professor mode, and I'm like, that's what yep, John Phillips, you got it right.
I have about every body part in my office. It's a part of being a personal injury attorney.
Yeah, that's what you do. No, it's great. Dr. Debbie, I wanted to talk to you some more about the motive here, because prosecutors are saying, look, he wanted to leave his wife, and they have evidence of that. They have all his writings. Wait till in our next hour, we're going to be unpacking, going to see all this unaired footage of, his trunk. He had a trunk of love letters going on. And so also we know he's working out the divorce papers, ready to serve them that day. Dr. Debbie, does this seem like a financially motivated, also, a love-motivated homicide to you?
Yes, Julie, 100%. And also another theory that we have discussed that I feel is absolutely appropriate on this case, and that's the disposal theory, whereby individuals feel that another person has become some way, somehow, the inconvenience, the impediment, the interference of a life they want to lead, instead of going through the legal channels of what people do if there's a divorce. Instead, he decided, I believe, to participate in murder. And again, it's always baffling to me, Julie, how people people who are seemingly well-educated, well-trained as a battalion chief would be somebody in the power, control, authority position, how some way, somehow, all of the logical reasoning goes out the window, and here we are. So I think disposal theory, and also what you suggest, I would maintain as well, a financial motivation.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Dr. Debbie. Boy, oh boy, a great discussion with you and John Phillips. And we got to leave it there for now at 9 a.m. We're going to be showing it all. Thank you both so much. We're going to hit a break. When we come back, here's what's next.
We can also say that multiple weapons were taken from the property of McKee. And there's a preliminary link from our NIBIN to one of the weapons that ties it to the homicides.
Oh, his goose may be cooked. One of the weapons located in the investigation over the murders of this beautiful couple in Columbus, Ohio, now being analyzed. And we're digging deep into the accusations against the accused killer and the motivation behind the actions.
Did an affair lead to double murder?
The Commonwealth's Attorney's Office has secured an indictment against Brendon Banfield for the murder of his wife, Christine, and the murder of Mr. Ryan.
Prosecutors allege the defendant planned to run away with the family's au pair. So he killed his wife and another man.
He was there, I'm gonna kill her, I'm gonna kill her.
It's a case of sex, lies, and deadly deception.
The Au Pair Affair murder trial. Live coverage today on Court TV.
Welcome back. Now for what's tipping the scales of justice in the murders of Dr. Spencer Tepe and his wife, Monique. We're learning about some new allegations against ex-husband Michael McKee, the man accused of committing the murders. McKee is a vascular surgeon and was once married to Monique back in 2015. And some reports are now saying that just 3 months before the murders took place, McKee was sued for medical malpractice. Perhaps more curious, the attorney for the patient couldn't track him down. Neither could a process server. I mean, they couldn't serve him with the lawsuit paperwork. They said he seemed to be dodging it. A co-worker allegedly saying that McKee seemingly disappeared. Well, now we know where the doctor is. He's in jail. He's in an Illinois jail cell, getting ready to be extradited back to Ohio. Now, there's a delay. Why? Well, authorities now say some plans to bring him back to Ohio by the end of the week just aren't feasible. When can we expect him back? Well, we're not sure. We know there's a status conference set for January 23rd, but he's not going anywhere. The eyes are on him. He's going to be facing the charges eventually. So let's talk about what the case is going to look like when he is brought into court. Are investigators going to identify a motive? And how about the guns they found? Let's talk about all of this. Let's bring in retired NYPD detective and the co-host of the Gold Shield Show, Tom Smith. Tom, good morning to you. Let's start first about the news with the weapons. Columbus police announcing they went in the house, found several, and they got one at the crime lab right now. What does this do for the case, Tom?
Oh, this is enormous. You know, all of us have always talked about what evidence did they have, what did they recover from the crime scene, and so forth. And now locating the guns in his residence and matching them to what we talked about for days, Julie. Not only the spent shell casings that were on the ground and on the bedroom floor, but also the spent rounds. Each round has a twist and a groove to it that is basically the fingerprint of that weapon. So if they were able to match that with the rounds that they either took out of the bodies or found somewhere else in that room when it was gathered for evidence, that is very, very damning evidence.
Yeah, it sure is, Tom. I've got a clip from the chief of police. Let's take a listen to her characterizing this as a domestic violence attack.
This was a domestic violence related attack. As we know, McKee is the ex-husband of Monique Tepe. We can say that we have the suspect's vehicle on neighborhood video surveillance arriving just before the murders and leaving shortly after. Detectives were able to link this vehicle to McKee. The vehicle was located in Rockford, Illinois, and evidence was found that showed McKee in possession of the vehicle before and after the homicides. We can also say that multiple weapons were taken from the property of McKee. And there is a preliminary link from our NIBIN to one of the weapons that ties it to the homicides.
Detective, tell us what you think about this relationship and what may have happened here if this doctor committed these homicides as police say he did.
Yeah, you know what? This is a tough one, Julie, because it doesn't seem to be a spur of the moment thing. It seems to be very planned out, and this anger or whatever he had just grew bigger over the course of time. So it's going to be very interesting to use the technical advantage that law enforcement has today to track him even more. Now you have him as a suspect. Now you can issue the search warrants for different downloads that he did. Where was his vehicle leading up to this? We know it was there the day of the homicides. That's fine. But now you want to track it backwards even more to see if this was even a stalking thing before the murders. How often was he around that house? How often did he watch them at work and really knew their schedule? That's going to be very interesting as well if they are able to piece all that together.
Excellent points, Detective. One of the things I'm really struggling with, and I would love if you have any educated guesses on this, how he got in. How he got in the house when they say there was a keypad on the door where you need the code. What do you think, Tom?
That's the million-dollar question, and we have done shows on your show, you know, with that exact question, and that's going to be very, very interesting. If he had the code, if he got it from somebody, if the door was open. I mean, there are so many angles that this could go on, but that's going to be a big question and part of the defense's, you know, strategy. Listen, defense attorneys have a job to do. We both know that. And I think part of that is going to be the access to the house. If he had no idea about a code, if he had no idea how to enter the house, that's going to certainly be a question the defense is going to bring up.
Mm-hmm. Oh, definitely. Definitely, Detective. Tell me, what else are you most interested to learn about as we progress through this case and we start getting more information coming out?
Yeah, I'm most interested in what I just stated, how long this went on, how much of a stalking thing or how much planning was into this murder. And, you know, we can all focus on motives. You know, the motive was to kill him. So now you have to just back it up and see why. You know, why did this take place? And we know about the lawsuit that he's involved in. And sometimes, Julie, things add up. You know, things just crush people and get people thinking in a bad light when many things happen in their lives, and then just taking it out on someone. You know, he was probably mad of how happy she was and how much she was getting on with her life with 2 new children, a new husband, and living life to the fullest, which he couldn't provide. So all that actually adds up as well.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah, we have to examine all things. That's a great point to end on. You know, it may not have just been one thing. You know, it might have been jealousy combined with unhappiness, combined with other legal problems. You know, who knows if this guy did these crimes as is said by police. Great insight from you as always, Detective Tom Smith. Check out his show, The Gold Shield Show. Thank you so much for being on this morning. We'll leave it there for now. Friends at home, thank you so much for being with us for this episode of Opening Statement.